The question for this fourth video is, I saw a video in which Osho says that love is real only when it allows total freedom. That it is like a flower that loses its life force when restricted, and that it's better not to become attached, because there are also other flowers. Why do people create family bonds, since they know that their love will not last and that they will look for another flower? You have a child with your husband, and then your love ends. How can we create a loving family in that way? What if I stop loving and leave? I always believed that love would last forever, but I do not see that happening with today's couples. I would agree with Osho that love needs to allow total freedom to the other and to ourselves. But the question is, what is attachment and what is love? Often when we say we love someone, it's because we're attached, that we are seeking to find our self-worth or security or pleasure or meaning or some role verification in some role by our connection to another person. And we fear that if we lose that person, we will lose our security or self-worth or happiness or whatever it may be we're seeking. We have given that power to the other person to allow us to feel what is already within us. Definitely in this age and time, people go from one relationship to the other. And yes, there are other flowers out there. There are other human beings there. But I don't think that's the purpose of relationships. If it happens, it's okay. And there's no need to have pain. And yes, we can connect with another person. But many people leave relationships before they have actually learned all of the lessons which are available in that relationship. It's the easy way out in most cases, and very few people really exhaust all the possible lessons that they could learn. Also, we need to understand that when we fall in love with a person, that's a feeling that may last for a few years, but eventually that's going to have to become pure love. That is, even when we see the person's faults, that we perceive that person as a divine being, and we continue loving that person, even though they have these faults, or even though we don't agree with them in all situations. Perhaps one of the main reasons we create relationships and bonds and families is that it's practical. It's in other cultures, for example, a man may have a number of wives, and I have heard that in cultures in the past, women had a number of husbands. It's a social norm that allows us to function as a society. It creates a sense of security for the children, and gives a base of role playing for the children, and also economic security for the children to grow up in. It's an ideal, and I think it's a fine ideal at least at this time and place. Perhaps in some communes, the children can be brought up by everyone, and that they could have many parents and many role models. But we're living in a society now in which the family unit is the basic way in which souls come into this dimension. That is changing. Now we see children with two mothers and two fathers, and with many mothers and many fathers because their parents have remarried, and many grandparents. Things are changing. I think the only thing we can ask ourselves is, are we loving purely enough? If we love purely enough, perhaps 90% of the relationships that do fail would not fail. If we are perceiving how we could love that person with their faults, if we are seeking to create relationships based on effective communication and overcoming our own needs and becoming self-sufficient, I believe that we can create relationships that will be loving and lasting, and actually can be a focus for spiritual growth, that we can, with that other person, be honest enough for the one person to help the other person to see ourselves more clearly, more objectively, through the eyes of the other person, and in this way to mutually grow spiritually more effectively. Be well.